Good morning. Thank you all for being here. We gather today on unceded Algonquin Anishinaabe territory. This place carries a long history of lawmaking, but also of exclusion. As we speak about the future of digital policy, it's important to remember whose voices have historically been absent and whose leadership is needed now. My name is Tiffany. I'm here on behalf of the John Humphrey Center for Peace and Human Rights. We're located in Treaty 6, also known as the Meskwaki or Edmonton. For more than 2 decades, we have worked alongside communities to advance dignity, equity, and human rights in both offline and online spaces. Over the past 3 years, we've been honored to support youth across Canada to examine online harms, participate in policy processes, and build solutions rooted in lived experience and human rights. This work has been made possible through the support of Canadian Heritage's Youth Take Charge program, CIRA's Net Good initiative, and the Canadian Race Relations Foundation. We are deeply grateful for their commitment to youth leadership and to building safer, more inclusive digital futures. What you will hear today does not come from institutions, but from young people themselves. The Youth Digital Rights Blueprint is youth-led in its vision, analysis, and recommendations. Our role has been to listen, to support, and to help build pathways for government to engage meaningfully with youth leadership. I'll turn it over to the young people who are here to present the blueprint and to invite Canada to listen, to respond, and to act.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Karunakaran. I'm from Meskwaki Treaty 6 territory, also known as Edmonton, Alberta. I want to start off by saying something simple, but often forgotten and ignored. It's that the digital world is the real world. Harm online doesn't disappear when we log off. It follows us into school, work. It affects our relationships, our mental health. When someone is doxxed, sextorted, or targeted by hate, that's not a content issue. That's a human rights issue. We also carry the memories of young people like Rute Parsons, Amanda Todd, Adam Rain, Swale Setzer, and countless others. Reminders that when systems fail to protect young people, the consequences are not abstract, they're permanent. Canada's current policy framework does not reflect the realities that we and other young people are facing online. With Bill C-63 failing to move through Parliament, there's no meaningful policy that adequately addresses the concerns and needs of young people. As a result, youth are navigating escalated online harms without cohesive protection. The absence of a national digital safety policy continues to magnify such harms. For Canada, there is now both an opportunity and a responsibility to develop legislation and policy that truly reflects young people's experiences. This blueprint begins from one clear position. Digital spaces are human rights environments, and youth are right holders within them. As we move forward, we invite everyone to stay engaged. Tomorrow, we will continue the conversation at our Youth Digital Rights Summit, and we welcome members of Parliament, senators, staff, and the broader public to join us. We look forward to connecting in person at our reception this evening as part of the ongoing dialogue. We're honored to be working with University of Ottawa Human Rights Research and Education Centre, Canada Confesses, and Writing Relations in co-hosting the summit.
Hello, my name is Varney and I come from Alberta. Across the country, youth described a consistent set of harms. Technology facilitated gender-based violence, including sextortion and deepfakes. Racism, misogyny, and grooming in online spaces, gaming spaces that are also entirely unregulated. Algorithmic systems that amplified misinformation, hate, and emotional manipulation. Data practices that prioritize surveillance and profit over consent and dignity, like the use of AI on digital platforms that store and collect our data without our consent or permission. Mental health impacts such as anxiety, shame, isolation, and addiction are deeply connected in how digital platforms are designed. These are not isolated incidents. They are systematic outcomes of how digital environments are governed today.
Hi everyone, my name is Deepsimran Braich. I'm from Treaty 7 Mohkinstsis, also known as Calgary, Alberta. Our recommendations are grounded in the principles of the United Nations Conventions on the Rights of the Child, which affirms that young people have the right to be heard, protected from harm, and supported in their development. Guided by that framework, our blueprint of Bill C-63 sets out a cohesive approach to online safety built around participation, protection, remedy, and support, and not as isolated ideas, but as interconnected responsibilities. Meaningful participation is essential. Policies are more effective and legitimate when the people most affected shape them. Young people experience digital spaces every day for learning, social connection, and civic engagement, and their lived experiences provide insight that data alone cannot capture. Engaging youth early leads to policies that are more responsive and more sustainable. Protection must also be proactive. Certain platform features, such as anonymous accounts, content-boosting platforms, and weak reporting systems, can increase the risk of harassment, exploitation, and exposure to harmful content. These risks are influenced by design choices. That is why safety should be embedded into platforms from the outset, with clear regulatory standards that prioritize prevention rather than reacting only after the harm occurs. When harm does happen, accessible remedy matters. Reporting systems must be clear, consistent, and trauma-informed so that young people can seek accountability without having to face additional barriers. Rights are only meaningful when they can be exercised in practice. Finally, lasting safety requires support. Digital literacy education, mental health services, and independent oversight mechanisms strengthen young people's ability to navigate online spaces while ensuring institutions remain accountable. Together, this framework prioritizes prevention, accountability, and well-being. Bill C-63 presents an opportunity for Canada to adopt a rights-based approach to digital governance, one that listens to young people, builds safety into systems, and ensures they can participate and thrive online with confidence.
Hello, everyone. My name is Vetsch. I use they pronouns, and I come from Buffalo Plains, colloquially known as Grand Prairie, Alberta. Based on the pillars shown, youth are calling for clear federal action, which include a national youth digital safety advisory council with real decision-making, a statutory duty of care requiring platforms to assess and prevent harm, regulation of interactive digital environments, including gaming and gambling-like features, extended timelines for evidence preservation and restorative justice options for survivors, a digital safety commission and a child and youth advocate with independence and authority, and a national digital literacy strategy co-developed with youth and properly resourced. These are practical, achievable steps that, if given enough support, can be implemented.
My name is Faye, and I am from Treaty 6, Edmonton, Alberta. We are at an important crossroads. As we're thinking up new legislation, this is the moment to genuinely partner with young people early in the process, not at the end, and not just symbolically. Young people are not asking the government to start from scratch. This blueprint builds on what already exists, has direct input from young people, and offers a clear implementation of what can happen in 6 months, 1 year, and 2 years. It is practical, realistic, and ready to be used. Over the past 3 years, I've worked with young people who have put real thought into what strong policy and legislation should look like. This blueprint is proof that young people can bring thoughtful, informed, and constructed ideas on digital rights and online safety. We live in this world every day. We understand the risks and possibilities of the online world. We're not just naming what needs to change right now. We're also thinking about how institutions should function in the long term. We recognize the importance of short-term action and long-term systems that are accountable, adaptable, and are able to protect future generations. And we are grounding these proposals in Canada's commitment to international human rights. This blueprint calls for early engagement, not last-minute consultation, for transparency, not opacity, for prevention, not crisis management, and for accountability that evolves as technology evolves. This blueprint is an invitation to partnership, but it is also a call to action. If we are shaping the online world of tomorrow, young people must be decision makers today.
Young people are often told to wait, to be patient, to trust that systems will catch up. But we're already living with the consequences of our inaction in our classrooms, in our physical communities, and most especially in our online communities. My name is Anurika, Onyenso, a local Alberta resident. Through my work with Canada Confesses and now with JHC, I see this every day. Young people are navigating digital spaces shaped by policies that weren't built with us in mind. Spaces where harm travels faster than accountability and where our safety is often treated as an afterthought. And yet, instead of disengaging, we're organizing, we're researching and building solutions, not because it's our job, but because our lives and our futures depend on it. This blueprint asks Canada a simple question. Will you build digital policy for young people or with us? We're not asking for permission. We're asking for partnership. The only way to build a sustainable foundation is by co-creating with the impacted demographic. We're ready to work. The question is whether the government is ready to meet us with the same courage, humility, and urgency. Waiting is no longer neutral because the cost of delay is already being paid dearly by us.
I want to thank all of the youth who have been working tirelessly to lead this work, including the rest of the team that hasn't been able to join us here in Ottawa. The Youth Digital Rights Blueprint is now in the hands of Parliament, departments, and regulators. We invite you to engage with it seriously, respond publicly, and act boldly. This is a moment of opportunity. Youth leadership has already shown us what's possible. Thank you very much. Yeah, any questions?
Abigail Beeman, CTV News. As you know, the government is looking to relaunch a new version of the online harvest bill, and you've made it clear that you've been at this for a while, even though the blueprint is being launched today. What have you heard back from government so far about what you've put out there? And happy for anybody who wants to answer to weigh in.
I can jump in.
I would love it one of the youth did, if someone's comfortable, if that's okay.
So we have been working, kind of looking into Bill 63, like before, like the previous version for some time. But for this one, we have heard that they're thinking of kind of like building new legislation, but we haven't heard anything directly from like the minister or the staff or any kind of like departments willing to kind of like reach out and work with us. This is the second time we've been to Ottawa, and we have shared before, like we had an initial report that we've shared with senators and some bureaucrats. So we have always put forward that we are willing to work with government. We have ideas, we have direct input from young people, and we're kind of ready to work. We're just waiting, and we're ready to like pick up the phone and answer.
I've read your blueprint, and I'm wondering, there's a lot of talk right now about banning social media. As you know, Australia, France have taken those steps. I didn't see that directly in your blueprint. I'm wondering if as a group you have a position on that, and if one of you would like to say what that is.
We really want to take steps in protecting youth online. However, with what we see in Australia, as well as France, England, and more countries who are starting to adapt these policy changes, we see that it is policing the internet more than protecting. There is absolutely no interaction with youth on the matter. They do not get to share their stories with people in power, and they are not able to be heard and be recognized. And so the entire goal of this blueprint is to restructure and reframe Bill C-63 to give it a youth perspective.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I think to add to that as well, I think what we want to emphasize is our blueprint offers kind of like steps and roadmaps, not just for actions that need to like happen right now, but as well as kind of like how can we actually make long-term institutions adaptable, accountable, and safe for young people, for future generations to come. And I think, banning is a short-term action, but like what about after, right? What do we do to ensure that this would actually work? Is there a way for us to make sure that if we ever do come up with a banning system, how are we sure that that is an accountable and safe mechanism? And that is kind of like what young people have input to offer, because again, this is our everyday life, and we kind of know the impacts of it, whether it be positive, negative, or neutral, and that's something that we are willing to share.
And I'm just wondering how this project came about. Maybe if you can explain kind of the methodology behind the report and kind of the consultations that were done, just so we can understand how it all came together.
Camel or Faye or Blue, if you want to take that one.
Sure. This project started around 5 years ago when several youth came to the John Humphrey Center requesting some help trying to formulate a Online Protections Act. Because Bill C-63 was prioritizing let me rephrase that. Because Bill C-63 did not have youth voice and we were not incorporated, it really didn't focus on the stuff that we are experiencing every day. So when these youth came to JHC, they got to work right away. It all started with digital literacy training and youth retreats to kind of just gain a perspective on where everyone's at and what their experiences are. And over the past 2 years, it has taken its form. An amazing amount of youth have come and gone, leaving and taking pieces of their own to shape the blueprint into what it is today.
And the John Humphrey Center has really gave us the space where young people can be together to discuss, come up ideas, and it's really a space for leadership. But when this started, this was back in 2020, right? This was the COVID-19 pandemic, and for young people, our lives became entirely online. The digital space was our real world. That is where we learned to kind of live, connect. That is where we went to school. So, but at the same time, when everything was moved online, there was also a gap there, right? The world was this is our first time kind of living remotely. And I think there was as we all know, that was hard even for adults to kind of cope. Imagine how much harder it was and kind of young people who are still trying to kind of learn about themselves, learning how to socialize, and there was no space there. So the John Humphrey Center really gave us the space to create kind of this program. This is youth-led. It was kind of thought out by young people and expanded as we kind of connected with more young people across the country. So it has always been youth-led and continues to be. And I think that is kind of what's needed as we think up the digital world of tomorrow.
You talked about how all these laws are obviously put forward by adults, developed by adults, and they're not really listening to youth. What do you think it is about the harms you guys experience online and your experience online that maybe the adults that are putting these laws together don't get or don't understand?
I think it's safe to say sometimes the laws kind of are outdated. They don't really kind of, they're not really talking about the issues of today, right? Even Bill C-63, it had a lot of gaps. For example, it didn't really specifically kind of cover the use of AI. And that was a year and a half ago. And now we're kind of even, there's more kind of usage of it. It's capable of doing so much more. And a lot of these things are kind of talking about issues from 10 years ago. So I think what young people bring is really kind of an up-to-date, what is actually happening now, what harms are we experiencing now. And as kind of Anurika mentioned, waiting creates harm. The longer we wait, young people face kind of these harms every day. We can't just kind of wait for legislation to, I guess, adapt to the time. We kind of need to make something that is actually responsive to the issues today to ensure that, young people can be protected as soon as possible.
To add as well, the reality is that young people bring their own lived experiences. No matter what the people in power, like the solutions that they feel like they have to offer, there's only so much they can grasp on the situation, and so much in the technological landscape is changing as well. Like look at a couple years ago and now how generative AI has just like quickly advanced into like what it is today. The youth perspective is very important in order for any policy regarding AI usage to really be sustainable. And our lived experiences, whether that's good, bad, neutral, can hopefully bring insights that research like will never be able to really fully grasp.
Just to add to that as well, I find that adults often are telling youth to just be cautious, and we are the ones that should censor ourselves and be incredibly careful and be very mindful, and that if anything does happen in an online space, it is our own fault, rather than building the confidence and the courage amongst youth and knowing that there is a safety net for them to fall on. I think that is something that we really do need, because that does impact youth mental health, and young kids like are playing Roblox and like online digital gaming, but I think adults don't realize how it really works, because you can chat with multiple users and even the chats aren't censored, and like your 6-year-old doesn't know how to report or know if like, oh, this is what bullying is and how to, if it's online, they really don't know how to identify that and how to navigate that situation. So we want to acknowledge that and bring youth to the forefront and say, yes, like we are growing up in a digital age, we have social media, and I think like politicians, decision makers, they also use social media and they know it's a powerful tool to get a message across. However, they don't use it the same way youth use it, in a way of community building and building themselves and connecting with one another and civic engagement as well. Like even with the work we've been doing, we've been using social media as a tool to help us reach more youth and to help build our research there as well. So we realize how powerful it is, but we also realize the downside. And when there is no legislation in place protecting our youth, then we are in trouble. And that is something that really needs to be acknowledged, and youth need to be at the forefront. And as AI develops, as more and more apps are introduced, and these big corporations make more and more money, we really need to prioritize our youth and realize where we're on like the edge of not protecting us, and we're going into the money and the finances, and we're not coming back to like the ground of these are actual human beings and it impacts them. So we just need to come back to our own and acknowledge that and realize everything is connected.
I did want to add something. I know we've kind of gone a bit everywhere with the question, but with like the stuff that's happening as well is companies are also using youth data. So there's like this new age verification thing going on where you need to input your government-issued ID that has your full name, your gender, where you're from, your address, just to use and access these spaces, which is wrong. And these companies, they will, as much as they say that it's protected, it's not, because there's been history where our data has been breached, where the hacking or whatever has happened. And all this information, all this data on all these people, all these youth are being distributed to who knows where. And that is very, very harmful. And we are trying to find ways to prevent that, protect, and move forward, basically.
Thank you. This concludes the press conference. Merci. C'est ce qui conclut cette conférence de presse.